there's always some kind of weird little situation that happens when there's wording that goes awry or something along those lines. And I think this is another one of those situations. Like for me personally, I find it to be funny and it's like more of a wait and see type of dynamic. But I can understand why some people are a little bit stressing this bit of news when it comes to like Ratchet and Clank or something like that. I think a lot of people, a lot of PlayStation fans have kind of come to grips with the idea that Sony might put some of the older PS4 games on PC at some point, but most of the PlayStation fans that I know, including myself, kind of draw the line, if you will, at putting games day and date or very close to day and date, or even PS5 games in general. I mean, Days Gone just went to PC after years and of being a PlayStation console exclusive. And, I think people were, I guess, I don't want to say everybody was okay with it, but basically the game reached saturation point. And what I mean by that is we had a situation where the game itself was basically selling during various sales for $5-10, and that's basically saturation point for a console. So then they package it and sell it for $50 to some PC folk, and depending on how that does or whatever. Horizon Zero Dawn did under 1 million on PC, where it did, I think they said 12 to 14 million on PS4. So Sony obviously knows where their bread's buttered. The other thing that I would point out with this whole situation is that Sony is actively paying Square to keep Final Fantasy VII off of PC. They added to their exclusivity part. So, they're partnering with Square for Final Fantasy VII Remake. They had a year exclusivity. They added another 6 months to that exclusivity. Why would they do that if they didn't feel that PC was, somewhat of a concern or something of a, deterrent on people getting the versions of games on PlayStation? So I think that a lot of times people maybe read too much on it, and there's not really anything to tell or say about it. This is definitely not a confirmation, but I do want to get into it real quick. Hey everybody, Crapgamer here with Crapgamer Reviews, back with another video. Thank you so much for checking it out. I appreciate it. Like, share, subscribe. I would appreciate that as well. It helps out the channel and it means a lot to me personally. So there was a bit of some panic and whatnot going on. A lot of people jumping out there, and I always find this to be funny over a possible PC release or they hint or something. So Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart was just debuted, a new trailer, and at the end of it capped off with the game being described as a PlayStation 5 console exclusive, which has led fans to worrying that the game will come to PC sooner rather than later. Both Sony and Microsoft tend to refer games as console exclusive where they're on their way to PC, but want to highlight that you can play it on console on their platform. Sony did that with Final Fantasy XVI, for example. The wording has led some concern that Insomniac and Sony are planning a PC release sooner rather than later, especially as more PlayStation games are on the way to the platform. But given the game uses the PS5 solid-state drive to create unique gameplay moments, you have to wonder how the game would run on PCs without a solid-state drive or with slower solid-state drive. So I think everybody has to kind of keep that in the back of their minds, right? Like when it comes to PC, there are none. There's no guarantees that somebody has a solid state drive or even close to the speed of the PS5s, and there's slower solid state drives as well, and that really could damage the gameplay. Imagine the loading screens and it stopping and skipping around for that. So you have to keep all this stuff with a grain of salt when you see this. It's also worth noting that Sony listed Demon's Souls as PlayStation exclusive with a note saying it could also come to PC, which shows the messaging from Sony isn't exactly the same every time. It would seem likely that Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart would come to PC, but wouldn't expect it a year or two in the future, if ever. I mean, let's just be real. Insomniac hasn't done anything on PC. They haven't released any PC games. Even Sunset Overdrive, for example, was a game that didn't go to PC from them. It was a game that actually was ported to PC by a different company. So, you have to kind of keep these things into consideration. And also, just to be honest, why on earth would they do that with Ratchet and Clank and not something like Spider-Man, which has sold over 20 million copies and probably could sell another couple million copies on PC, as opposed to Ratchet and Clank, which honestly, I'm not sure which Ratchet and Clank this is, but it's, I think, probably the 8th or 9th or 10th one. Putting that on PC when you've had none just doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense. So if you are a PlayStation fan, calm down. Everything's going to be okay. That doesn't necessarily mean that the game's going to come to PC. I'm not sure exactly why people kind of always get their panties in a bunch over this kind of stuff. But, it's very interesting to see. Obviously, Sony has made a little bit more push for PC, but they haven't necessarily done that with, with PlayStation 5 games. Like I said, the new trailer dedicated showcasing weapons and traversal. However, like I said, putting console exclusive at the end really kind of says it. But it doesn't say that it's limited or anything like that. The wording is different from the one we're used to other Sony first party. Maybe they're just covering their bases or something like that. Given Sony's recent push towards PC with Guerrilla Games' Horizon Zero Dawn and Ben's Days Gone, and Jim Ryan's comments about more PC games coming to be released in the future, it's not. I understand why some people are upset or whatever, but I don't look at this as a tease or anything like that. One would think that other acclaimed PS4 games like God of War, Spider-Man, Bloodborne, Ghost of Tsushima would have precedence when it comes to PC porting over a fresh new PS5 game like Ratchet and Clank. Insomniac's new title also makes heavy utilization of Sony's next-gen console-optimized NVMe solid-state drive and I/O solution, something that's not readily available on the average PC gamers yet, and are still most stuck with SATA solid-state drives or even regular mechanical hard disk drives. So, again, people are salivating. I'm sure PC fanboys are really like, oh yeah, but at the end of the day, this is not a confirmation of anything. People thought that Demon Souls would come to PS4 after a certain amount of time, and that didn't happen. Doesn't look like it's going to happen. So, the wording is changing. Maybe that's so that they can, get away with not being called for false advertising at a certain point in time. But it is very interesting to see how this is kind of working out and how people like to jump on it. I especially find it funny how Xbox fanboys kind of jump on this stuff. It's like Xbox fans are so pissed off that Microsoft puts everything day and date on PC that they want everybody to feel like they feel. And I've always felt that way. I've always felt like they're the ones that really are upset by this because they literally get nothing exclusive. And not only do they get nothing exclusive, but they also end up with basically a situation where they have exclusives on the PC platform that aren't even on the Xbox itself. And that's like a double slap in the face from Microsoft. So I can see why, a lot of Xbox fanboys kind of jump like that and kind of get upset. For me personally, it's sort of a wait and see type situation. Like I said, I don't really have necessarily a problem with waiting years before doing that, or keeping it to the PS4 and below that. I think the big problem for me would be if it was like day and date or closer to launch of the PlayStation 5, because at that point we live in a world where you can get the PlayStation and Xbox exclusives on a PC. There really would be no point in buying these consoles at that point. Like, they would become even more redundant than they already are. So, with that being said, I'm going to link it. I wouldn't stress about it right now. Let's wait and see what happens. But let me know what you think. Sound off, rate, comment, subscribe. Rack 'em up. Crapgamer out.